They still call me the Penguin.
Hello, everyone, and welcome back to We'll See About That with our special guest, Ted Sobel. And Ted will be receiving a beautiful fruit gift basket, courtesy of our friends at Melissa's Produce. Melissa's is a proud sponsor of We'll See About That, and please use my VIP code RONSE when checking out at melissas.com. And as you can see, for those of you who are seeing us on Roku, I've got my Rugrats with us and today, and I've got Sophia and Julian, who've got nothing better else to do today except come over here and pester us. So we're going to join with Ted Sobel right now, kiddos, okay? And Ted, we go back, to give you a brief introduction to our listeners, and we'll go back about 50 years, I guess. And and you're a Fairfax High School graduate. You went to L.A. City College, and you've had a long, illustrious career in broadcasting. And you have been around the block with just about everything, which I think is a lot of major kudos. I mean, you've done just about every sport. You've done the Lakers, the Dodgers, the hockey, college as well. You've done Wimbledon, tennis, college football. You've been in all the major games, the Super Bowl, the World Series. What an amazing career you've had. Where did all this get started?
Well, Ron, it's great to talk to you again, sir, and all the best to your family, because Fran's one of my favorite people on the planet, your wife. It got started because I couldn't be Ron Say, and I couldn't be a pro player. So when I was in high school, I met an old disc jockey on KRLA growing up. It was one of our top rock stations, and his name was Dave Hull, the Hullabalooer, and he became a mentor. And I thought, you know what, if I can't be a pro athlete, why not somehow be involved in sports? Maybe I can announce them or at least be involved that way. So Dave had me around the studio. He was one of the first guys to ever do Dodger Talk when the Dodgers were on KFI, and that was in the late 60s. So Dave kept me around the studio and showed me the ropes, and I was just totally hooked. I loved his approach to being a DJ, and then the way he did everything. I said, I got to do this. And I went to LACC, did a little radio and TV, but it was mostly me and my buddy Paul Olden, who's now the Yankees public address announcer. We would go to games all the time with a tape recorder and just practice night after night. Dodgers, Rams, Lakers, whatever, Kings, and just practice until we said, you know what? I think we're good enough to do this, and eventually we were.
Well, in this little bio that you have, you got some pretty good advice early from a legendary basketball player by the name of Elgin Baylor.
Yeah. Well, Elgin, I have a whole chapter in my book, Touching Greatness, which is available on Amazon. And Elgin was somebody who I grew up with, saw him play at the Sports Arena here in L.A. With Jerry West, and just thought he was the greatest ever. And he really was. He did amazing things. For those who think he was only a general manager for the Clippers, he's one of the great players in the history of the game. And Chickern used to call him the greatest pound-for-pound player he ever saw through into the 90s. And that includes Michael Jordan, by the way. So when Elgin was at his peak and not injured. But I found a way to get up to his house. I found out when I was playing C&B basketball at Fairfax that somebody said, you moved into the neighborhood where Elgin lives, and I couldn't believe it. So my whole goal in life, Ron, was to find his house, and I eventually did. Knocked on the door, and his first wife, Ruby, answered the door and said, it'd be a pleasure to have you meet him, but he's taking a nap, and he was still playing at this time. This is like 1969, so he had a couple of years left in his career, and before you know it, the next day he invited me in. We talked for 15 minutes. Ended up, he took me to games, and he basically said to me one time, I remember him looking in the mirror, in the rearview mirror as we're driving to the Forum of whatever game, and he said, so what do you want to do with your life? And I said, well, I'd love to be a basketball player. And him and his wife were laughing so hard, I thought we were going to get into an accident. at my 5'7", 150 pounds, and he eventually said, "What do you really want to do?" And I said, "You know what? Probably be an announcer. I think you talked me into it, Elgin, and the rest is history."
You know, I started being an Elgin Baylor fan way back when I was a teenager, growing up in the Northwest, and you know the rest of it. You know, he went to Seattle University, had a great career there. Saw him score 60 points. We had our games telecast back then.
Yeah.
And so I got to see a lot of the games, and he took them to the national championship game against the University of Kentucky, and they lost, but he really established himself as a true All-American and had a bright future ahead of him, and just so happens to be the Los Angeles Lakers.
What was his game like, fellas? You know, back, because I've always heard stories that he was one of the very first players to play above the rim before he got hurt.
That's exactly the term that everybody uses, and it's true. I mean, Elgin could lead. His nickname coming out of Washington, D.C., where he grew up, was Rabbit, because he could jump like rabbits were jealous of him. Let's put it that way. And at 6'5", 225, he was able to get up there with the biggest centers and just steal rebounds away. So, but his game was basically dribble drives and hanging in the air like he'd be. Chickern used to say, he's on the third floor while the other guy fell down to the mezzanine section, and Elgin's still up there waiting to take a wide open shot. So he was just incredible. He wasn't the greatest shooter ever. He was a very, very good shooter, but he took shots in those days. Remember, when he came in, there were a lot of still two-handed shooters in those days. So he did stuff that people couldn't even dream of. And basically, you know, Dr. J said he stole Elgin's game, and that's basically who he was for his entire career. And those type of players just relished what Baylor did.
Well, you know what? You reminded me of the two-handed shooters, Dolph Shays. I remember Dolph Shays and Richie Guerin. Wasn't it Richie Guerin who used to shoot two-handed free throws? Both very good shooters. And you mentioned Dr. J. I can definitely see where he took part of Elgin's game, because both of those guys could stay suspended in the air, and it seemed like three guys would be going by him, and he's still up there to put the ball in. Unbelievable talent, and I had
he had to have big hands, of course, and both Elgin and Dr. J did, and they held that ball like it was a ping pong ball in their hand.
Yeah, well, that was obviously a great piece of advice that Elgin gave you, and it seemed like it worked out pretty well.
Yeah.
You worked so many other different sports and for a long time.
Yep.
Can you give me an idea of who some of the better interviews were, some of the better events, the ones that really stick out? And we've only got about 2 minutes left in this segment, so if you can keep it to one or a little bit, and then we'll retake it back in the second one.
Okay, well, certainly one of my all-time favorite interviews was Elgin, by the way, because I did my first interview. Could you imagine the first interview of a 50-year career was with the greatest player of his era? He invited me into his office once. I sat down. That was the first time I ever did an interview in my life. It was before I did radio. So that's my favorite. But guys like Kobe Bryant, and I'm the guy who asked him, by the way, hey, what's the problem? Why aren't you smiling? And he ended up with which is a popular meme, job's not finished. Job finished. Job. I'm the one who asked him.
That's a famous clip. Yeah, job not done. Is the job done yet? Job done yet?
Exactly. So every year I hear about that when the Lakers are up 1-0 and they got a long way to go. So I'll never hear the end of that one. But Tiger Woods was always an interesting interview, only because of who he was, when he was at his peak. Not the best interview there was, but guys who were fun and funny were always fantastic. And I got a chance to interview Will Chamberlain once, and it was spectacular. And then at the end, he was so pissed off at me for asking him how he was doing with Bill Russell at the time. I thought he was going to step on me like I was a cockroach, but it ended up okay.
Yeah, well, I knew Welt pretty well too, so that's another story as well. We're gonna be right back with Ted Sobel. We'll see about that right after we take this quick break. Stay with us, please.
All right, very nicely done. Very nicely done, gentlemen. That was fantastic. All right, moving along. Here we go for number segment. Second with the guest, third in total. This is going to be 12 minutes. 12 minutes. Ted, just to throw this out there, Dave Hull, he passed in 2020, and we were the last interview he ever did with us. Was with us with our company.
Oh, I gotta find that.
Yeah, I can send it.
Is
to
it
you.
online?
Yeah, it's online. I can send it to you.
Oh, that is great. Thanks for telling me.
He was tremendous. He was living in Palm Springs. He just wrote his book. And,
and he sent me a copy of his book just before he died.
Yeah. Yeah, he was just a total sweetheart too. And
the worst part of my whole thing with my book was the fact that I couldn't share with him because he just passed when my book came out.
Yeah, I'll send you the links to the shows we did with him.
That'd be great. Thanks.
He talked a lot about bringing the Beatles to LA, and it was really special.
Go right back into where you left off with your interviews. Talk about your book because that's kind of where it leads.
All right.
You can talk about who those guys that are in your book, if you like, and you can once again let people know where they can find that.
Okay.
And we can do that as well.
Yeah, we got to talk about Carl Foreman too. Just a little bit.
Yeah.
Are you old enough to know who he was?
I read about him. I read about him. They actually talked about it in college too.
Really? That's nice to know.
Yeah.
That was my mother's only brother, and he was a fascinating guy, and he got totally screwed by our wonderful government.
Yeah, they really gave it to him. But man, the Bridge River Kauai, I mean, High Noon, Guns of Navarone. I mean,
I just did a podcast a few weeks back on the Blacklist featuring my uncle, and I had Gary Cooper's daughter on talking about High Noon.
Oh, fascinating.
I'll let you lead to that. Okay.
Sure.
When you want, Mike.
Okay. All right, here we go, gentlemen.
Yep.
Hello, Ron Save. Okay, we're back. We'll see about that with Ted Sobel. And Ted, let's talk a little bit about your book, Touching Greatness. You've got a lot of people that you've interviewed there, and who are some of the people that you highlighted in the book?
Yeah, well, I did a whole chapter, as I said earlier, on Elgin Baylor, but I broke them down after the first several chapters, which were more chronological, growing up in L.A. in the 60s, what it was like to be around Laurel Canyon during the great music era.
Yeah.
When I went to Fairfax, it was just amazing. But then I broke them down into sports in the second half of the book. So in basketball, I talked a lot about the Shaq Kobe era, and Shaquille O'Neal was one of the nice Hall of Fame endorsers of my book, and we had a great time. He was another one of my favorite interviews because he was just like a little kid just having fun. He was a little 7-foot giant kid. And a ton of fun to talk to, whatever the circumstances were. And then from a baseball standpoint, I had a whole chapter on Don Drysdale, who was my favorite baseball player growing up by far. I used to joke that I had his number 53 written on my underwear. I mean, it was everywhere. And he was just a very special guy. And, of course, get to know him a little bit when he was announcing for the Dodgers. And as I wrote in my book, and I think Vince Scully's pretty much said the same thing. The day that Don Drysdale died from a heart attack in Montreal, the next morning I was on the old KMPC here in LA, and I had to do the first sports updates talking about my boyhood idol dying the night before. And it's the hardest thing I ever had to do, and I'm sure nothing will ever come close to that. I almost broke down like 3 or 4 times, even individual, like once an hour. The next hour I almost did again. It was very, very difficult. But anyway, Don was great, and so I have a whole chapter on him. And in hockey, Wayne Gretzky, I have a lot about him and his era here as well. And then football, a lot on Aaron Rodgers, because Aaron became he was the Dodgers playoff correspondent, if you can believe it. He was a Dodgers fan when I met him randomly when he was backing up Brett Favre at Green Bay. I read him at a preseason game in San Diego, and we became friendly, and he ended up coming on my show when he was a backup, just talking baseball. So a lot of good stuff there, but, a lot of music and entertainment things in the book as well.
Well, that's terrific. I may have to change my view a little bit on Aaron Rodgers, who's a Dodger fan.
Yeah, we might have to go back and edit some stuff out of this show that we've done in previous episodes.
You can have your open opinions about Aaron because he deserves most of them.
Oh, yeah, he sure does.
Yeah, he's got some opinions, that's for sure.
You never know which guy's going to show up.
Ted,
I don't think he does either.
Yeah, that's for sure. Ted, 2011, you did the Ted Slam, where you covered the NBA Finals, the World Series, the championship of every major sports league in the country.
Yep.
Which one was your favorite to call? Which one was the most challenging? And if you only had to call one sport, if they're all you're booked, you got called, you only had to call one event, what would that be?
Wow, that's a whopper.
Yeah,
that's a whopper.
Boy, that is a tough one. I think we need more than 12 minutes for that one.
Yeah.
You know what? First of all, the Sobel Slam was somebody threw that name on me. It was totally random, guys, because no team from LA was in any of them except for the MLS Cup, which the LA Galaxy won. I think that was David Beckham's last year, if I remember correctly. But either way, it was fun to be a part of. What I loved was the Miami Heat. That was the first year that LeBron James was there. And I just happened to be randomly there because I had a girlfriend down in Miami. And I was visiting her, and I said, you know what? I'll just since I was capable of getting a credential, I went to the game. It was Game 6 where Dallas beat them with Dirk Nowitzki. And I went in there afterwards, and I asked LeBron, and he was sitting up at the podium along with Dwayne Wade, and I said, I hate this word, guys, because I don't use it often, but respectfully, do you think you guys choke? And by the way, I'm still waiting for the answer on that from LeBron. They got their asses kicked in that game. You know, double-digit favorites in basketball on your home court on an elimination season game, and you get killed. That's not a good thing.
Well, I mean, wasn't it just this last NBA championships where Oklahoma City lost by 40 points one game,
They
too?
did, yeah.
I mean, I don't understand how you can get beat that badly if you're that
good. It is pretty bad.
But
to lose the elimination game, Ron, on your home court when you're heavy favorites, there's no excuse for that.
Well, we saw a lot of games that were kind of crazy this last NBA season, but yeah. Wild. So go ahead. This is a multi-layered question.
Yes.
Yeah. So what was your favorite one to cover, and if you could only cover one event, what would it be?
Yeah. Well, I think my favorite one was the LeBron one, but any event from a standpoint of just enjoyable. I mean, Wimbledon is incredible. I've been to the Masters several times. That is great too. You know, there's something about I love tradition. I think one of the problems of the younger generation now, and I don't want to go there. It's not like I'm a great grandfather or something, but I don't think they appreciate tradition anymore, and I think that's going to hurt in the long run. I'll be long gone, so I don't have to worry about it. But there's something about tradition, and that's part of what Ron and I talked about on my podcast. You know, the baseball stuff, the traditional. I mean, it's not even the same game. So I like the traditional stuff, the British Open, Wimbledon, the Masters. Those are my favorite things.
Okay. Well, you know, as far as what you had to say about history and tradition, I think that's kind of going in all directions. You know,
yes.
I think it's more about what's going on today, and they don't want to share that too much. And I see that happening more in baseball, and I'm told that it's pretty widespread these days, that it's not just necessarily here or there, it's everywhere.
Yeah, it's unfortunate.
And it really is, because that's what kind of lured me in way back when I was a kid. It was the history and tradition, knowing the players who came before you, you know, and you had to dig that out. You know, it wasn't available. We didn't have cell phones and computers and everything. I mean, you really
had to want it.
Yeah, exactly.
That's what drives me crazy about this, is because these players in the leagues and people involved in baseball, I mean, they have every piece of history at their fingertips now. They can go online and watch, you know, every World Series going back to 1927, and yet they don't want to continue that kind of tradition, that kind of.
Well, let me give you the smallest example real quick on what bugs me. And people say, oh, it means nothing. But how about just a ticket to a game? Now it's a barcode. You know what those tickets meant to me when I was a kid? I kept every one of them. And a program that meant everything. Now they don't even exist anymore.
Yeah, well, there's a lot of people, especially your season ticket holders, and you know those, you know, true baseball diehard fans. They want those ticket stubs too, and you know that meant a lot, because there's just so much wound into that the whole upbringing, your childhood, being a fan back then, much different than it is today.
I still have on my fridge right now a ticket, 25 years old, from Game 4 of the Western Conference Finals of the year 2000, the Robert Horry shot. I was at that game.
Oh,
there
that
you go.
big shot.
I have that ticket still on my fridge.
Well, that's
and
wild.
I still have tickets from the first 3 World Series at Dodger Stadium. I was at the first game in 1963. Don Drysdale pitched a 1-0 shutout. I was at that game, and I have that ticket. It is framed, and it means a lot to me. If that was a barcode, I think I'd shoot myself.
Yeah, you get your tickets through the email, and then you get them scanned when you walk in. So yeah, much different today.
Ted, I want to ask you, going back to something you talked about, Tiger Woods, and you've interviewed so many superstars of sports and in entertainment over the years. A lot of these athletes. I mean, Tiger Woods is a good example. I mean, he has been trained since youth to be kind of very vague, very blank. How do you break through to somebody to make that kind of connection to get what you want in the can?
Well, fortunately, I was with Tiger from the start. I was actually there his first swing at the Riviera when he was a teenager. They brought him as a sponsor's invite at the time. So I've been there his whole career. And one thing about Tiger is if he feels comfortable around you, and you could pretty much say that about everybody. Ron, as an athlete, I'm sure you had guys you'd rather talk to than others because you like them more, and it's just being human. So there's something about being around Tiger. I think my face was familiar to him, whether he liked the way I looked or not. And there's a comfort level that becomes part of what you're doing professionally, I think. And so I got some pretty good stuff out of him. But yes, he was. I call him computerized for way too long.
He was, I mean, not in personality and in game as well.
Exactly.
Yeah, I do agree with you about dealing with the media. You get comfortable with a certain group of guys, and fortunately for us, there was a lot of media in the clubhouse back then. There's not so much in today because you have press conference room. And they usually don't allow those things to be conducted in the clubhouse anymore, nor on the field, because it's all roped off and security's tight. But
yes, it is.
I think there's a trust factor there. I think we could talk off the screen a little bit with them when they did not really understand some things that were going on. And you could say, listen, if you want to learn more about this, we can talk off the record.
Yeah.
But a lot of times, everybody's been burned. No question about it. And after a while, when you're being interviewed every day, you do come into kind of an understanding with those people. Is there anything in here that we just talked about that you want to rehash because you don't want it going out the wrong way? And the longer that you're with those people, there's a better understanding. But it is, once again, much different today.
Yeah, part of the problem is that, and I've done a little of this, they don't have media training. Whether you're coming right out of college or high school, you're very raw doing that. And you could get pissed off pretty easy by stupid questions, which you're going to get, because especially in baseball, it's every damn night. So eventually you're going to say, oh, not again, do I have to answer that question? But if you had media training, you could wrap us around your finger. You could do whatever you wanted because we just need 12-second soundbite from you for the most part.
Well, it was pretty easy back then because the Dodgers were the one putting you on the private plane and paying for meal money and putting you up in a hotel. So, yeah, I'm pretty sure it was easy to get around there. But, we're going to right back with Ted Sobel, and we'll see about that right after this message.
All right, very nicely done, gentlemen. All right, here we go for this is going to be the third one, but the fourth on the grid.
Regroup here for just a second.
All right, just 1 second. Do a reset here. Okay, we got a quick branded feature at the top, and then if you don't mind, I just want to ask about his uncle. Great. All right, let me just make sure I got my copy here. All right. All right, here we go. And we are back. We'll see about that with the legend, the MVP, the champion, Ron Cey. I'm Mike Gary, and this week in Dodger history, 1974, the Dodgers beat the Padres 15-4 in San Diego. The Dodgers now at that point 5.5 games in front of the Big Red Machine. Ron Cey led the way with 3 runs, 3 hits, 1 walk, 2 home runs, and set a new LA Dodgers RBI record by driving in 8 runs. That was a heck of a great day, Ron.
It was a great day, and we're heading into the last 2 months of the season, and we're trying to make amends for coming in second place to the Reds the year before when we entered the month of September with about a 2.5 game lead. And then their experience and their leadership got it through it. So we knew we had in front of us, but this was a big game, and I had actually had an earlier high of 7.
Wow.
So, it was great. Larry Kahn actually was there that night, and Ted knows who Larry Kahn is. They're both Fairfax High School graduates.
I used to take him to games before he drove.
Yeah, I know. Anyway, that was a great night. But Mike has a question for you.
I was probably there, Ron, but I don't remember.
Yeah.
Ted, you have a very interesting connection in your family. Your uncle was the legendary screenwriter and producer who was sadly blacklisted. His name is Carl Foreman. He won an Oscar for the Best Written Adapted Screenplay of the 1958 Best Picture winner and one of the great films of all time, The Bridge of the River Kauai. Also wrote screenplays for High Noon, The Guns of Navarone, Born Free, Champion with Kirk Douglas, The Men with Marlon Brando. What are your recollections about your uncle?
Well, he was a tough dude, first of all, Mike. He was a total perfectionist, but he meant so much to my life. When I was a little kid, I used to hear about my mother's only brother living in London, and I couldn't understand why I never got to see him. And I was too young to understand the blacklist at the time. So we're talking about the late 50s, and he had been living there since about 52-ish, I believe. And he ended up being there for 25 years because you couldn't get a job in Hollywood if you were part of the blacklist, and that's a whole separate issue. If you guys want to learn more about that, I just did a recent podcast on my Touching Greatness YouTube channel, and I'm sure you would really enjoy it. It was called Blacklisted at High Noon. And so anyway, when Carl wrote High Noon, that's the time when the government got involved and they called him in to speak in front of HUAC, which was the group from Congress that they wanted to screw everybody over and basically put you in a small category and make sure they ruined your life. And that's what they did to Carl. And when I was a little kid in elementary school, people would say, hey, because Carl's name was very big then in the movies, and they would say, hey, your uncle is Carl Foreman. That's so awesome. I said, but he's a communist? And I had, how do you answer that when you're 7 years old? I didn't even know what a communist was. So that wasn't easy. And I wrote a whole chapter about him. It is not in my book. I need to get it into a future volume of Touching Greatness, or a different way to do it. It's like about 100 pages on how he affected my life. I talk about each one of his movies. But Carl was one of the guys who tried to get me into this business through his contacts. I actually got an interview with the San Diego Clippers when they first moved over to try to become their play-by-play guy, but I wasn't ready yet, so I didn't get the job. Some guy named Ralph Lawler got it, and he ended up being there for the next 40 years. Yeah. So it worked out great for them. But Carl was an amazing guy, one of the most brilliant people I've ever known, and to be able to do stuff like that. And by the way, if Winston Churchill says, I want that man to do my movie, And Carl was on the blacklist, and Churchill said, I don't give a damn what blacklist you have in the United States. I like what you do, and could you do my movie? And Carl said, absolutely. So that's pretty high praise right there.
Well, those are great movies too, though. I remember Bridge Over the River Kwai.
Yeah, classic.
High Noon. Yeah. Those.
Guns of Navarone was my favorite.
Yeah, that too. That was great. Yeah, remember that well.
Yep.
As much as he was an inspiration, you've had others that have come before you, and you mentioned Chick Hearn, Tex Winter, Bill Sharman, and Paul Olden. Can you talk a little bit about each one of those guys?
Absolutely. Well, Paul was important because I met him at LA City College the first day that we were in the broadcasting class, and we just hit it off immediately. And Paul was an inspiration because he, another perfectionist, he would sit and practice play-by-play for every game he could watch on television at home in his bedroom, and he'd have his tape recorder there. Now, that's not easy to do, but, you can't go to every game, so you do whatever you can do if you really want it. Just like you always say, Ron, if you want something badly enough, you got to go for it. And Paul was great about that, and he basically drove that into my little brain that's the way to do it. You got to have the passion for it. If you want it badly enough, you got to do it over and over. And we did it for over 6 years. We went to hundreds and hundreds of different sporting events around town that I mentioned earlier. So he was huge in that department and making sure that my discipline was where it needed to be. The other ones, Tex Winter was somebody, people don't remember Tex. He worked as an assistant for Phil Jackson with the Chicago Bulls and the Lakers. I knew him from Long Beach State because I announced Long Beach State basketball back in the early 80s. And he used to just have me sit next to him at the front of the bus when we were on a road trip and just do diagrams for me and show me stuff. And he was just, in those days, you didn't have 19 coaches on the bench with you. So it was a lot easier to have access to him. So he was fantastic, really, really nice guy, and just went out of his way to be extra nice. Bill Sharman was a wonderful person, even though he was a Boston Celtic, and Elgin and I used to talk about him. We hated him and we loved him at the same time, because if he wore Celtic green back in the 60s, there's no reason to like anything about you. But Sharman ended up being the coach of the first Lakers championship team, and absolutely the nicest guy you ever want to meet. We had the most incredible chats, and those kind of guys. But, you throw Chick Hearn in there. Chick would take me in the back office at the Forum and show me how to make a chart to call a basketball game and stuff like that, and just give me little tips in here and there. Same with the Bob Miller, the Kings announcer. Yeah. All those guys were important, and of course, I lived off of whatever Vin Scully did. And one time I joked with Vin, my station KFWB won an award, and we were at the Southern California Sportscasters Luncheon, and I got up, accepted the award for the station, and Vin was sitting in the first table right in front of us. And I said, Vinny, I never told you this before, but I used to go to bed with you every night with that plug in my ear from the transistor radio. And my mother was pissed because when she found out that I wasn't going to sleep and I was listening to you and Jerry Doggett through the post-game show until you said goodnight, that's the way I lived back in the 60s, and that's the truth.
Yeah, well, I had a front row seat for those games. I mean, the transistor radio was going wild within Dodger Stadium.
Yes,
every single night, and so I understand that. I used to go to bed with my transistor radio when I was a kid too, and so I know a little bit about that. And Bill Sharman, he's got more NBA championship rings, I think, than anybody does, and he also is the very first autograph I ever got on a brown bag, lunch bag. Yeah. I don't know where that went, but it was a long, long time ago.
Yeah, unfortunately, my father got Babe Ruth's autograph after a game. My dad worked at Yankee Stadium, by the way, when Babe Ruth and Gehrig played. He sold peanuts and popcorn when he was 13 years old in 1931.
Yeah, so now we're back on the sidelines of baseball.
Yes.
How do you like what's going on in today's game? I mean, we've got metrics that run the game. We now have introduced gambling also. Yes. And all the rest of the manipulations that go on with the rule changes. We have a universal DH now. What do you think about what's going on in today's game?
I don't like it. It's to me, it's hard to watch. I right now I'll pick an inning or two and I'll watch a little bit. But in the old days, I'd watch a whole game. I don't care how long it was because I was into it. Now there's very little strategy. It's just swing as hard as you can, and if you strike out, whatever. And if you hit a home run, great, and that's all that matters. They don't care about batting averages. The analytics of the game are real to a point, but then you have to have an eye, and that's not just baseball. That's every game. You have to have an eye for the game. You have to know what is right and what is wrong, and you have to have instinct. You have to know what you prefer. Like if it's in baseball, a specific. If you're watching a guy swing, if he's swinging out of his ass and he's fouling, but he hits one out every 17 days, who cares? But he might get $14 million a year for that. I don't get that. To me, I want hit and run. I want bunts. I know the kids now saying, "Ted, you're boring as hell, and you're old and whatever." But that's what I want. I want strategy. I mean, to me, a manager could almost fall asleep back there and to have the pitching coach bring in the reliever after the other guy threw 30 pitches. So I don't like what I see. I don't know how a kid can become passionate about this game unless you're 6'5" and 300 pounds and you're swinging for the fences every minute.
Well, there's no question that it's changed, and we could talk years about all the things that have gone on, and it's more like the game has changed. I think in the line of it's just all about entertainment. I really do.
Well, it's for TV now. That's all it is.
Yeah, they're going to cater to whatever the fans want, and that's a higher scoring game.
Yep.
So therefore, let's hit three home runs, three-run home runs every couple innings, and we'll keep them in the ballpark. And it's that way in the All-Star games too. You look at where football has gone. Now you're playing a flag football game. Not really particularly liking that.
Swing offs in All-Star games.
Yeah, swing off in the All-Star game. It started with the home run derby, and now it's the All-Star game is going to end with a home run derby. So it's home run derby. And when you look at basketball, where it went a couple of years ago when they were playing games, it's 205 to 199, and nobody plays defense, and they're shooting half-court shots every other time down the floor.
Yes, and hockey is like 30 to 25.
Yeah, and then
ridiculous.
And then they switched it over because that wasn't working well to now it's the quickest to 40 points.
Right.
So, I don't know. You're losing me here. And we speak about baseball again for the second. ESPN, it looks like they're seeing kind of the same thing that we are because they're dropping out after this.
Okay. Well, again, if I'm a young fan, I don't know how I become passionate about it because there's not a lot to be passionate about. How do you get involved with guys that are, your starting pitcher is going 4 or 5 innings? It's like big deal. So he's almost like he's just a starting reliever to me because it's nothing special anymore. Yeah. I mean, I want to see 7, 8 innings. I want to see how deep in the game he can go, and if he's still got something left. I used to joke your first manager with the Dodgers, Alston's sitting in the dugout and he's falling asleep in the 8th inning. I want to see if he's going to wake up in time to pull the pitcher out of the bullpen.
Well, there's no question that it's changed, and we're going to see how just much more it does change in the near future. But, Ted, I want to thank you so much for being a part of our show today.
Absolutely.
Good luck to you, and thanks again for being with us. It's been a great interview.
Appreciate it, Ron and Mike. Thank you.
There we have it, ladies and gentlemen. We're going to be right back. We'll see about that right after.
Just give that to me one more time.
We're going to be right back. We'll see about that right after this message.